about an experience he had with a friend who was very passionate and really lived life in a deep way. And this friend said that we should be willing to embrace living our lives with whimsy. And I've never heard that before, but the author just defined it as the nagging idea that life could be magical, it could be special if we were only willing to take the risk. So that's also just to kind of back up what I just said, but life isn't all about just going through the motions, but sometimes if we just take a step back and if we actually embrace what's going on and dare to kind of take a risk, beautiful things can happen. So, I'll give you a little bit of background, and I just want to make one thing clear. My journey from a stranger to becoming a sister was not always a pretty one. It wasn't all butterflies and sunshine and happiness. There was a lot of ups and downs, and especially the first year I was in Ghana, there was a lot of very low moments when I was just like, what the heck am I doing? I want to go home. So as I shared, I don't have any ideas that this was some romantic experience, that it wasn't. It was a lot of ups and downs. So just a little bit of background. I went to Ghana first in 2010 with Intercordia, which is a program that partners with this university and some other ones to send students overseas to different countries around the world for the main purpose of building relationships. We weren't going to accomplish anything or build something or save people or anything great like that. It was just to go and immerse ourselves into a culture that we were not familiar with. And previous to that, when I was 16 and when I was 17, I spent 2 summers in Rwanda working mainly with a local organization who that works with widows and orphans. So that was my initial experience in the continent of Africa, and then this led into the Ghana thing. So I really, before I left to go to Ghana, I really tried not to have expectations and was trying to be open to what was going to happen to me, because I had no idea what to expect. I was feeling very good about it, but at the same time was taking a huge step into the unknown. So I arrived in Ghana on May 5th into a village called Ebenyagakope. And I remember blogging about it a few weeks after I had arrived. And the village is very much, well, I think, when people maybe think about stereotypical Africa, this is maybe what they would picture. There's lots of plains with mountains, plains as in grass and land. And there were lots of mountains in the background, cows everywhere, straw like a ball of emotions, just feeling a lot of things, wanting to go home, but at the same time really curious about what was going to happen, and like knowing that I needed to stay and needed to really move forward and like embrace this, but at the same time would have been so much easier for me to leave. So, May 15th was my 19th birthday, and in Canada, 19th birthdays are usually a pretty big deal. But on that day, it was a Saturday, and my host family all went to the farm, and I just wanted to go with them. I just wanted to be with somebody and not be alone, but it was too much work for the white girl, so I stayed home alone. And I sat in my bedroom, and I cried, and I made some gross Gatorade and ate some granola bars and celebrated my 19th birthday all alone. And I was literally like having the biggest pity party ever. It was kind of embarrassing now, but I was just like, I'm all alone, nobody cares about me. I'm sure you can all picture it, and I'm not even exaggerating. So then I left my room finally after the granola bars were finished, and I went and sat out on the deck, or like the porch area of the house, and this woman came over, which made me happy because it wasn't just me and the kids, like there was somebody else. And I recognized her. I had seen her a few days before at the water, and but I had never really talked to her. But she started talking to me, and I was instantly amazed by her English. Because in the village, most people, if they can speak English, it's pretty broken, but hers was almost fluent, and we were communicating really well. And I was very thankful to have somebody, just like a connection. And our connection was pretty instant, and I just had a feeling that her and I were going to be friends in some manner. I wasn't really sure what that would look like. So at that point, I was just thankful, and I viewed her kind of as my birthday present because, again, I was just feeling bad for myself. So her name is Augustina. She lives next to my house. She has 3 young boys, all under the age of 6 at the time, and a man who I assume to be her husband. he never didn't say much to me at first, but I would always see him running across the schoolyard and just come and stand beside me and look up and smile. And so we had that connection, but the thing that made our connection the strongest was fish lips. And I know that sounds really weird, but when I was a kid, like, I was obsessed with making funny faces, and sometimes I'm really awkward and I couldn't communicate with Bryce. I was like, what the heck, I'll try to make fish lips and make people laugh. And seriously, after I did that, he was absolutely amazed. And it sounds lame, but every morning from then on, like, that's how we greeted each other. We would make fish lips. So it was, I don't know, it was just really cute, and he was the one person who just taught me a lot of very deep lessons about just accepting people unconditionally, because he's the person who has potential to be kind of outcasted from the culture and from society there, but he was the one person who saw past my white skin and just totally embraced me and loved me unconditionally. So my first summer there, he was probably the person who accidentally taught me the most about so many life lessons. Okay, so then there's my family, and I was extremely overwhelmed by them at first, because they were intense, they were farmers, I can't even explain them. They just embraced me so wholeheartedly and with so much love and wanted to immerse me into their culture, and I was just like, I thought my family in Canada was crazy. So for the first little while, it was a lot to take in. So I had a mother and father, they were both farmers. My mother, I call her Beyonce, because she's so fierce and very strong. She farms every day. And my father, who's never been to school, he can't speak a word of English, and he's the hardest working person that I think I've ever met. So they were very good parental figures to have in Ghana. They took me in as a daughter, and they didn't treat me like a gift. They treated me very much like I was a daughter. So I didn't get away with stuff if I messed up, much like Canada. conversation. But in that hour, I saw a glimpse of how many people probably perceive me as white and superior. This bothers me deeply, and I am saddened that so many people have this idea. However, it makes sense when you consider the historical background. I can see it as an opportunity, though, to build relationships that have no barrier based on color and race. I'm not here to create change at all, but if my presence in the village can help my family and neighbors see that we are all different and equal, then it will be more than worth it. So that night was, again, a little bit of a breakthrough for me, because we just were able to communicate and reach an understanding that we were equal. So from that point on, I was my family didn't view me as a stranger at all anymore. I was fully their daughter, and they finally understood that, okay, she actually wants to be here. She wants to get her hands dirty, and she wants to just be one of, not, in essence, be one of them. So that was an amazing moment. So I'll go back to Augustina's story. In June, the 1st of June, got my paper towel. Okay. So one day after, I think I was in school or something, and at that point, I would go and visit Augustina in the evenings, and we would chat, or I would sit there and play for boys or something. And then I got home, and I think it was my host mother said that there was an accident, and that didn't surprise me at all, because there's always accidents that go on, always. And death doesn't really, not that it doesn't matter as much, but it's just not maybe taken as seriously or just viewed differently. So yes, there were accidents every day, people died every day, but it was just handled differently maybe than we would handle it here. So long story short, Augustina had been on her way to the city to sell some vegetables, and her youngest boy, Raymond, who she's holding, was with her. And they were in kind of the equivalent of maybe a 15-passenger van or something. And the story, I wasn't there, but the story that she has told is that one of the tires popped off, which is normal, and that happened to me a couple times this summer. But what happened is the woman who was sitting directly behind the driver got scared when this happened and grabbed the driver. So obviously the steer lost control, and the van rolled. And there were, I think, 19 people in the van, and 4 survived, and then one of them died later on in the hospital. So hearing this, I was just kind of like, whoa, I didn't know if she was one of the people that had died, or what was going on. But a few days later, they said, Augustina's back in the village. So I went to her house, and she wasn't there. And what was happening is her leg was severely broken, so she was staying in the village where the school was, just a 10-minute walk away. So I went up to visit her, and as you can see, this is before the accident, and she's already extremely tiny. And I saw her laying there, and she was just extremely frail, and just looked like she was on the verge of possibly death. I wasn't really sure what was going on. But as the days went on, I consistently went to visit her every day after school. Raymond, he only had a few scratches on his head. She said, literally a minute before the accident, he was crying a lot and being squirmy, so she just passed him, or not passed him, she put him on the other side of the vehicle, and she said that was really hard because I can't control that. And then the man who is her doctor was also trying to sexually harass her. And he would often, like, he would do very sexual things. He would never touch me, but he would, like, just make very inappropriate comments or gestures while I was there to me and also to Augustina. But women are very, in most cases, oppressed, so it's not like Augustina had the power to tell him to stop, and I didn't know if I did. And then one morning before school, I stopped in, and he was there, and he took out his pocket knife and was making comments about, like, cutting her vagina. And at that point, I just lost it, obviously, and I just, like, grabbed the knife from him, and I just got really angry. And in hindsight, I'm not sure if that was the right thing to do, but I was just feeling so overwhelmed, and, like, I've never experienced that before, so it's just how I dealt with it. So after about, like, a month, Augustina started to make small improvements. I was there from, the accident happened in June, and I left at the beginning of August. And during that whole time, she walked with crutches 2 times. So she was literally on this concrete floor for that whole time. But during that time, every day after school, I would spend hours with her. And she would talk very candidly about education and about her dreams and about her boys' futures. And she was very different than most of the women I met there because she was just very sure of what she wanted, and she had very strong faith, and she knew that if she worked hard and if she just, I guess, did what she knew she needed to do, that things would be okay. So we talked a lot about, like, how can women in this village become sustainable, like what can make a difference. And after talking a lot and me thinking, and I've been reading some books kind of about women in the developing world, we realized that some sort of project or program or something that's owned by the village, not something that I'm going to kind of run, but if something like that was available where women had maybe access to livestock or more seeds for their gardens or money or something, so they could get ahead in that, then maybe there would be some hope. So those ideas led me, I was just doing a lot of thinking about, okay, what's my role in all this, how can I help? And I talked a lot to one of the men there who is kind of like our mentor. He's Ghanaian. And we talked a lot about this idea, and he knew, like, something could be done or something needed to be done. But we weren't sure exactly what that program or project would look like. So at this point, it was just a lot of brainstorming between myself and Augustina and Godwin, and just thinking a lot, journaling a lot, and just trying to figure things out. But last year when I was there, nothing actually started. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to, I guess my reason for being in Ghana, like I said, was not to make any change or do anything right. I was just there. I was just living my life, and it happened to be in that village. But I found a lot of the time I was just so overwhelmed with the poverty and just some of the injustices, and I just didn't know what to do because it's in my nature to want to maybe reach out and help in some way. But that's not at all why I was there. I was there to, as it says, just witness what was going on. And I'm going to read you something else from a journal that I wrote, which kind of corresponds with Augustina's story. This one? Yeah, just bear with me. There's a point. It was late in the evening, and I was sitting in my room after taking my bath. The villagers were producing their normal evening noise and music, bantering. Hens were clucking, kitchens were being cleaned, and this was all noise that I had grown to love. As I sat, I realized that the noise was becoming louder and seemed to be concentrated to one area of the village, beside my family's compound. As the minutes passed, the noise shifted from the normal sounds to a woman shrieking and crying. She was screaming and yelling. I could feel the anger that filled the air. I walked outside only to see all the women of the village gathered around her, trying to calm and console her. However, she continued on, ignoring the pleading of the women. There was a large group of men also gathered around, but they were beside a different house. I grew confused and had little idea what was taking place. Previously, I wrote in a blog or journal, I wrote about seeing beauty in the broken. If one is able to do this amazing In theory, I knew that abuse was existent, even rampant in this area. Yet because I had not actually seen it, I went on with life as normal. I'm not here this summer to create change. I'm in part here to witness the suffering and injustice. It kills me to be silent, to be a silent witness to injustice. A few Sundays ago, when we were preparing supper, I heard screaming and banging, wailing again. So this is after that initial experience that I just talked about. I heard screaming, banging, and wailing again, coming from the same house as before. Within minutes, the whole village had gathered around and was watching. Most of the men, young and old, were like spectators, laughing and offering their commentary. Many of the women just stood in silence and watched, while a few tried to intervene. The husband was livid this time, and a good beating was not suffice. Instead, he wanted to kill her, and he was prepared to do so. Some of the neighbors were able to stop him from carrying out that action. He made it very clear, though, that she needed to leave so he could find a new, younger, better, and more compliant way. This story is only one, but it is representative of quite a few here. In sharing this, it is not my intention for you to feel bad or uneasy. Here's the thing, though. My village is such a beautiful place, filled with the most welcoming and loving people, and I allowed myself to just get swept away by this beauty. I was stuck in a honeymoon stage. It took these situations, and also the one with Augustina, for my ignorance and blindness to be robbed from me. My heart is broken to see the abuse, the poverty, and the inequality, and the brokenness. Sorry. My heart is broken to see the abuse, the poverty, the inequality, and the acceptance of all these things. Yes, there is immense beauty here, but there is also immense brokenness, and that breaks my heart. The villagers have, in their own ways, and in various moments, been pointing to me the realities. If I spent this summer here and I refuse to see the bad that parallels the good, my time would be in vain. Although I'm not here to create change, I do make the most of any opportunity I can to instill in people, specifically the younger girls, a sense of worth and purpose. The woman and her children packed up all their belongings into a suitcase. This is a few days later. They got their goats and a few other items and ran from their village while the husband was at the farm. And as I returned this summer, I didn't see any of them, but they hadn't returned. So I know that was a really long journal entry, but that again was a huge learning curve for me, and also helped me understand their culture and just the village more. Because as much as there were some unknowns and some hard things that I had to work through during my first month there, I was extremely naive to the poverty and to some of the pain that these people endure every day. So as hard as it was to witness the experiences that people like Augustina were having, or this woman and her family, it was also good came out of it in the fact that I was finally able to have a more balanced view of the way that they live in, the things that they experience. And also it just helped me reach a place where I understood that I wasn't there to help. I was there to be there and just to be a friend and whatever. So, the summer went on and I became very comfortable in the village. I picked up quite a bit of the language. I hung out with the teenagers. I would fetch water in the mornings and the evenings. I would help cook. I went to the farm a few times. I was comfortable traveling on my own. So, although it started out I wasn't sure what I was doing, by the end of it, I really felt like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm starting to fit in. Then it was time to head home. And as I got home, I think it was easier because I had been in Rwanda before, so I had a little bit NGOs and human rights class. And part of that class was to volunteer for a local NGO, or he said, if you want, you can create your own. So Kelly and I decided, or I kind of forced Kelly to do it. I decided that I would like to try to start something of my own, keeping in mind kind of the conversations that I had with Augustine and Godwin and just all of that vision or whatever. So we started, looking back, I was extremely naive and I was pretty gung-ho though. And like, I'm not going to deny the passion that was in it, but at the same time, I really had no idea what I was doing. I'm sure Kelly had more of an idea. No? So we started what we called Goats for Girls, and the idea behind it was we would use agriculture or livestock to help women in this village become self-sustainable. But the emphasis really wasn't on like Kelly and I doing anything. It was my desire to try and help these women do this on their own, and I was more of a facilitator and helping to raise the funds. So, yeah, so that's that. We raised some money, it was kind of organized, but yeah, we did it. And then in May, I went back to Ghana, and as soon as I got there, it was truly like I had never left, and I can't really explain the way that everybody embraced me. And I remember calling my sister Katie, and I was just like, I feel like I haven't left at all, and I was like, I feel like I could almost come home because I feel like I've been here for such a long time, but I think that was on the 5th day or something. It's kind of ridiculous. So the language, little things like the language came back to me really quickly, and I was able to actually pick up most of it. So I was able to communicate really well with most people. So all the barriers that I had to work through and struggle with for my first like month and a half, the first time, that wasn't there at all. I'm not saying, again, it wasn't super easy and it wasn't all sunshine and roses, but it was a lot easier. And there were different challenges. But I was just extremely comfortable being there. And my relationships with my co-sisters were so much different than the year before. Because the year before they were a little bit, not awkward, but I think they just viewed me more as a like authority figure. But this year it was just we were sisters and that was it. So that was a huge blessing just to be able to build on those relationships. But as I got there, I was feeling really uneasy about the whole Goats for Girls thing. And I remember calling mom and dad and journaling and not sleeping at night, just feeling really uneasy, but having no idea why I was feeling uneasy. Because before I left, I felt very strongly that this is what I was supposed to be doing, and that even though there were a lot of unknowns, I just felt like, yeah, like that's why I was going back. After about a month, I was sick one day, and I was laying in bed, just again, journaling, not sure what I should do. I wasn't sure who I should talk to about the whole Goats for Girls thing, and yeah. So I was just kind of at the end of my rope with like, okay, Carrie, you've already been here a month and you haven't done anything, so what are you doing? And it was just like this voice or something, and it was so obvious, but it was like, Carrie, you need to listen to these people. And it was like, duh. It was so obvious, but this whole time I had been using my perceptions of poverty and what I think they need, and also incorporating a bit of like obviously what Augustina had told me, but it was a lot of what I thought would be good for them, and that's what I was planning. And then, so I realized the importance of, I need to ask them what they think they need. conversation about what they can do and what they want to do to move forward. Because they're the hardest working people I've ever met, but every dollar that they make goes into the basic necessities like food and buying, yeah, just the necessities. Once the children finish junior high, if they get that far, the chance of them going to senior high is extremely, extremely low. So there's just this cycle of poverty that they know they want to break out of, but they don't have the resources or the means, or sometimes the education to do so. So having this conversation and starting a dialogue about how to move forward was amazing for me. And I truly learned more from them than I could ever imagine trying to teach them. So it was really interesting for me to hear their thoughts on it. And so Godwin is the mentor that I had mentioned before, him and I talked a lot. I would go and visit him a lot, and also we had meetings within the village, and they decided that what they need is a microfinance program. So basically a loan system where they're able to get working groups, and they're able to get a sum of money that they can use to put towards a business that they want to start or their existing agricultural businesses, but so that they can get further ahead to produce more or start something new, so that they're able to save and actually move forward instead of just going in this circle, this never-ending circle of poverty and whatever. So they reached that decision that that's what they wanted to do. So basically, Goats for Girls, it's not a bad idea, and it's been done before thousands of times in different countries. But for this specific village, that isn't exactly what they needed, and that was extremely humbling for me to be able to learn, just be able to listen and see what they need. And so from that came this new idea. And there's a quote from Jean Vanier, and he says, "When people love each other, they are content with very little. When we have light and joy in our hearts, we don't need material wealth. The most loving communities are often the poorest. If our own life is luxurious and wasteful, we can't approach poor people. If we love people, we want to identify with them and share with them." So this quote, I think it's self-explanatory, but me helping or wanting to work with this village and with these people who I've come to love as my own family and friends, helping them isn't at all because I feel guilty or because I feel bad for them. It's just because of this mutual, genuine love that we have for each other, and my desire to want them to move forward and for their children to be able to be educated or eat 3 meals a day or whatever it is. Yeah, so that was a huge lesson that I learned from this summer being back. Sorry. So being back this summer, like I said, not as many challenges or a lot of different ones. But probably the highlight of my summer, which was the thing that I hated the most about last summer, was teaching. And by no means do I think I'm a good teacher at all, but I just became the class 4 teacher, so like grade 4 teacher, left. So I was left alone with this class of 42 students who couldn't speak very much English, but I just had more of a zeal or something, like I was more passionate about helping these children learn. So I had to come up with really creative ways to communicate with them and to teach them lessons that I really wanted them to learn without really speaking much English. So one thing that we did that I is that I think this one of the things that really spoke to me the most and helped me learn in a very personal way what love is, because I think in our society we have a lot of perceptions about what love is and what it means to be loved. But for me personally, I was able to experience, I think, love in its most raw form and probably one of its most genuine forms. But like my family in Canada, obviously means so much to me, and the family that I was welcomed into in Ghana also means so much to me. And at times it's hard because I feel like maybe my Canada family has feelings of jealousy or something, or vice versa. But I remember journaling over the summer and just realizing that there was no jealousy at all. It was just this like circle of family. And one evening, I went out to the roadside often to call my friends or to call home because there's absolutely no reception in the house. So because of the time difference, it'd be like 9:30 at night, and I'd trudge out onto the road in the darkness with my little cell phone. And one night, my host mother was like, "Fuliba, I'm coming with you." So we go out to the road, and she's like, "I want to talk to your mother, your Canada mother." And so I dialed, and I think it's one of those you had to be there moments. But I'm standing out on the side of the road, and it was just, in hindsight, like absolutely hilarious. But I'm standing there in my little, I don't know what I was wearing, trying to keep the mosquitoes off, and my host mother, who's absolutely massive, is standing beside me, hugging me on the phone, speaking extremely broken English to my mom, Cindy, who's here. And it was hilarious because mom had absolutely no idea what she was saying. But my host mother was so enthusiastic about talking to my mother that she just didn't care, and she was just like talking and saying so many things that I could tell mom had no idea what was going on. But as I was standing there in the darkness with my host mother holding me and her talking to my birth mother and like me hearing everything, and it was just like this realization, and I just realized how much I have to be thankful for and how much genuine love is in my life. So I guess it was such a beautiful moment, and like I got emotional and I was crying because I was like, oh, I'm so loved, and it was just really, really cool for me to experience. Yeah, and towards the end home in Canada, I am so easily distracted, stressed, consumed, etc. with everything, things that really have no meaning or purpose. Being in Ghana, away from comfort, from familiarity, and so on, has stripped me of so many layers of garbage and fakeness that I was clinging to. Many of my insecurities, my fears, and my shortcomings have been revealed. It is painful to get such a brutally honest look at myself, but it's refreshing too. I am not perfect at all, which every single one of you can attest to, and I am finally at peace with that. I know it seems a little strange that I had to go to Ghana to see those things, but sometimes we need to be physically removed from our bubbles in order to have seen our lives in a new light. Yes, so I'm not sure how much of that made sense, or like if you were able to understand it through my blubbering and tears, but I think in some ways it's probably more maybe therapeutic for me to, or not maybe not, therapeutic for me to just talk about. And I struggled because there's so many stories and so many experiences that I had to leave out for time's sake, but that I feel like I could have shared. But I want to thank you guys for listening, and I think it's cool that I know, in some way know all of you who are here, and you've all in some way had an impact on my life, even you girls. And so, yeah, it's, like I said, I feel like I'm on the verge of a emotional roller coaster or something, because I was forced to reflect, which was good. So I just thank you guys for listening and understanding what you could. Yeah, just know that it means a lot, and I feel like I'm ready to move forward in the next steps because I've finally dealt with some of this. So my journey from stranger to sister was not at all easy, but it's been the most worthwhile thing that I've experienced, and I think it's only the beginning. And I know some of you are probably going to be a part of what's to come next. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for everything, just your support. And if there's any questions, I would love to answer them after I weigh myself with it.
Maybe before the questions, I could just thank you, Kara, and I think that you know her, I don't. I said before that I was impressed, well, you can imagine how much more I am impressed now. And you also mentioned the word blessings in disguise. I saw that throughout her entire piece. I feel that this has been a blessing in disguise for me. The word angels came to me many times as you were going through that. I think you're a very courageous woman, and I think that's a lot to admire. And I think you've done a lot, and you'll have a lot to offer. And I don't think I could have done the emotional roller coaster that you've done. And I'm very pleased that you're willing to share this personally with all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I was trying to compare urban and rural Ghana. How, I know you landed in Accra. Was Accra very different from the village?
Extremely different. Actually, Accra is very, very westernized. It's very modern, and most of the conveniences that we have here, they have in Accra. But driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to the village is almost like going back 50 years or something, where there's no running water or bathrooms or things like that. So they're extremely different.
I think it might be, I know the story, but it might be interesting because you didn't feel you had time there, but just to give a little bit more detailed update on where Augustina is at now.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking that during the presentation. Augustina, last December, she told me she was going to do this, but I think I was the only person she told. She said as soon as she was able to walk and as soon as her peppers were harvested, she was going to run away with her 3 boys. And I wasn't sure if she'd actually do it, but then after Christmas last year, she called me and she's like, I did it. I ran away. So since December of last year, her and her 3 boys have been living in the capital, in Accra. And for the first while, she was living with a stepmother, and they were like working together, and her language
back this summer?
What?
Going back summer 2012?
I would love to, I think probably, but who knows? That's what I would like to do.
So how many fellow students going to be able to take us?